Hi, I'm Terrell Turner, the host of Stock Talks. Now, today we're going to be jumping into another great stock, walking through it, doing the homework. Our team has done the research. We're going to share with you what we found. But before I begin, for those that may be joining us that are new, that don't know who I am Terrell Turner. My background is accounting and finance. I've worked with some of the biggest corporations in the world. I've worked with over 21 Wall Street analysts and working in investor relations and just helping different companies navigate their relationship with their investors. And I spent most of my career in the FP&A world. So my job was to help companies tell the story to their investors, which means I know how to understand the numbers. I know where all the hidden bodies are. I know where all the stories. I know when someone's trying to polish a story to make it sound better than it really is because, hey, I used to have to do that for a living. Now what I do is I create great content for you. I help you figure out what's really going on here by digging into the numbers, digging into things. So let's get started with today's awesome company, Ford Motor Company. Now, I know many people are probably thinking like, Ford, it's an old company. Why are we even taking the time to talk about this one? I think because there is some relevance there for Ford. And I do think that, hey, Ford is one that we probably want to look at, especially if you're looking at the automotive industry. Now, let's dive in and let's actually take a look at it. So let me bring it up, make it a little bit bigger, and let's dive in. First, okay, with Ford, as always, when we go with any stock, want to start off with understanding what are the how do they actually make money? Now, of course, Ford is in the automotive industry, so transportation. Now also within this automotive are the services and the parts. What most people don't realize is a lot of these manufacturing companies that make automobiles make a ton of money on aftermarket parts. So selling the spare parts to actually fit the vehicles, like when repairs need to be done or things need to be replaced that are not a warranty related issue. So those parts, and in many cases, they issue, I guess you'd say, Ford branded parts. And sometimes they also do generic parts. So they make parts that are generic. They just they don't have the Ford name. So they're a little bit cheaper. It's kind of like, pharmaceutical companies. Some of them make their big brand names and some of them also make generic brand names as well. So you see that happen a lot in the automotive. And then the next one you want to look at are mobility. Now, mobility is a newer area for Ford Motor Company. And to be completely honest with you, I wouldn't say it's big enough to be an actual business segment, but if right now what it is, it's the part of the company where they're investing in things like autonomous vehicles. They're also investing in the technology that goes into the vehicles where, let's say, for example, in London, one of the things that they're working on is their Go Park. And what that does is it actually builds technology into the actual, I guess, computer or the dash of the vehicle, and it actually searches for parking spots. So it helps the drivers find parking more efficiently because that technology is embedded in. So that mobility, just think of anything that is related to, hey, a computerized driven system that allows it to connect to the internet. So it's just something that allows, think of like mobile devices, like all the apps and stuff like that. So it's being able to take all of that and embed it in the vehicle. And then they're also in the ride sharing through mobility too. Mobility also allows them to get into ride sharing where the vehicles can actually communicate with apps and devices to where people can actually do the shared ride service. All right, another one is the Ford credit. Now, one of the big things for a lot of these industrial manufacturing companies, when you think really, really big company, a lot of times they're selling a ton of vehicles, and the dealerships that they're selling the vehicles to don't have all the money to buy it up front. So what a lot of these industrial manufacturing companies do is they actually create a financing arm, or I guess you say a financing business, to where it's owned by Ford Motor Company, but it is kind of a separate company. So the Ford Credit is a separate company that is owned by the corporation. So what that company does is it issues loans to the dealerships to allow them to buy vehicles so the dealerships can sell the Ford Motor or the Ford vehicles on their lot. Because if you think about it, I mean, if you drive past a dealership and you see that there are like, 300 cars in the lot, you know for sure that auto dealership didn't have the money to just go out and buy all those and just let them sit there. A lot of times what happened is they actually bought the vehicles on credit from Ford, and Ford is actually holding a receivable. So Ford holds the mortgage, let's say, mortgage on those vehicles. So when the auto dealership sells that vehicle, they keep their profit and then they take the rest of it to actually pay Ford's or pay the loan that they took from Ford off. So then Ford gets his money. Now, the reason why that becomes important is because what Ford having a credit company allows it to do is, well, one is because Ford is so big, they have better access to capital and to financing than the dealerships do. So it allows them to leverage, low interest rates to being able to get that financing, getting their hands on that capital. And then also, because Ford holds the loans for all these vehicles, what Ford has is pretty much an IOU from the dealership. Well, what these financing companies can do is they can take those IOUs and they can resell them to a third party, and a third party will pay them cash today to be able to take ownership of that IOU. So it puts Ford in an interesting position because they can give the loans so that the dealerships can buy their vehicles, and then they can go take those loans and they can resell them, or they can repackage them and issue new stock on the stock market to raise more capital. It's a very interesting process, but we won't get too deep into that because the reality of it is Ford makes most of its money from the automotive segment. So from selling its vehicles, selling its parts, and then providing services for those vehicles. Now, the next thing we want to do is jump into the financials. Or actually, sorry, before I get to the financials, I got to tell you what grade I gave their products. Now, the grade I gave their products is a B. The reason why I gave it a B is because Ford has traditionally been I guess you say, a fossil fuel type vehicles. Now they're in the process of switching over to being more electric, but as we see a lot of appetite change for different types of vehicles, and people wanting to be more eco-friendly, Ford has some catching up to do in that area. Now they're doing a good job or they're making progress. For example, they're coming out with the new Mustang Mach-E. So it's an electric powered Mustang. Now, Mustangs were traditionally American muscle cars, meaning they burn fuel, but they are making that transition and they're trying to get into that space. Now, what I will say is they got some catching up to do compared to some of the other players in the market. So, with that being said, I believe that they have a great product, but they do have some hurdles that they need to get through so that they can actually become more dominant in the space. And even when we looked a little bit closer at their actual sales by vehicle count, and when we looked at their 10K for 2019, I believe their market share was less than there was less than 10% of the US market, which means there are a lot of other players in the market that are selling their vehicles. So Ford has some work to do to build up their market share and to build out their space there. And it's part of it because appetite for the type of products they offer are changing. I mean, when you think about things like Uber, a lot of people aren't buying cars as much as they used to because they can, use public transit or use Uber or something like that, or they're moving into cities. So I would say when it comes down to their product, I think they are solving a problem, but I think they have heavy competition and dynamics in that industry for the automobiles are changing. So I gave them a B in that area. Now, on to the financials. First area I like to look at is the revenue. And what you can see is Ford has done a pretty good job of sustaining revenue. Now, in Q2 of 2020, the year of COVID, they did see a significant dip, but you did see it jump back up in Q3. And one of the things that we found when we looked into the details is there was way more volume sold in Q3 than expected. People didn't expect that people would be buying as many vehicles, or Ford didn't expect that people would be buying as many vehicles in light of COVID, but demand exceeded their expectations. And you also had a mixture, whereas demand for the higher priced vehicles also exceeded their expectation, which also led to them seeing a lot more favorability there, which plays out in the gross margin. Because more higher priced vehicles were in demand, they saw a lot more profitability there. I mean, as you can see, they went, from 12 to 11 down to 7, then back up to 16.7, which means they're able to generate a profit from their pricing. Now, the next area I like to look at is the operating profit. So gross margin tells me, can you make money on your product? Now, operating profit tells me, can you manage the rest of the expenses for your business to still make a profit? Now, as you can see, historically, that hasn't been happening. But when you look at Q3 of 2020, because they had such a favorable increase in their pricing and volume, they were able to generate a solid profit in Q3, which is good. It means a lot of potential, a lot of opportunity for them. Now, the next area I want to look at is when it comes down to the cash, because cash is very important. Because when you're a company like a Ford, an industrial manufacturing company that's in a very competitive industry, you have to keep investing to innovate, to come out with that next new product, that thing that's going to attract and keep customers coming back to you. Well, when we look at the cash, I think it's very impressive that they're able to keep a pretty good cash balance. And when we look at operating cash flow, which means the cash in and out from just their operations. So excluding any like financing, major loans and stuff like that, or raising money from investors, just looking at their operations, what we can see is that they have a pretty healthy flow of cash, which means that they're going to have enough cash to continue funding the expansion or funding the growth, funding the ongoing reality of their business. So when it comes, and I look at all of this, one of the things that I say is the grade that I give them is a B plus. And the reason why I give them a B plus is because I think they've done a good job in Q3. But if I look at the history, one of the questions that I'm asking myself, and even as I was digging, continually asking myself is, a lot of this happened because, the increase in demand for the product and the favorable pricing. Those don't necessarily seem to be things that are going to be happening on a regular basis. Those seem to be things that happened at that time. And if you look outside of Q3, let me go back to it. You look outside of Q3, you see that profitability hasn't been as great for them. So I was a little concerned about that. Now, I think if they continue on the track they are with Q3, then this B plus could definitely jump into the A range. But for now, I give it a grade of a B plus. Now, the next part, this is the part that you care about the most. Let's be honest. I mean, this is the part that matters to you the most. And it's how do you make money? So at the time we're filming this, the stock price for Ford is $8.99. Now, I like to quickly look at the 52-week high, which is 950, which they aren't at their 52-week high, but that doesn't automatically mean that they're going to get up to the 52-week high. The things that you have to think about are the stock price is based on how confident people are in the future of this stock. Now, I do think that people think this stock will be around for some time. Like, I don't think anyone's believing that this stock is going to go away. But the question is, if you're trying to make money on the stock price, meaning you expect the price to go up at some point, you have to ask yourself, what would need to happen for a big company like this to see a jump in their stock price? And it would probably have to be the release of a new product, a announcement of a pretty big contract that's going to be ongoing, a massive innovation that allows them to improve their financial performance. Several things have to happen. Now, at the moment, I think they're a little ways off with the mobility and the electric vehicle strategy that they're currently working and unfolding. I think they're a little ways off before they can kind of dominate in there to really materialize on the benefits of that. But one other thing that I think is pretty interesting is they have issued a dividend in the past. Now, I believe they suspended it during Q1 and Q3 as related to COVID. So they want to conserve as much cash to use in the business. But in a normal period, which is probably expected that at some point they'll go back to issuing a dividend. So I do think that that is a plus for the stock. But to be completely honest, I'm not quite sure I see enough there to say that, hey, I see this stock making a jump. So if you already own the stock, I don't think it's a bad thing. Now, if I were looking at this stock, would I jump in? I probably wouldn't jump in, just because there may be other stuff that does have more of a growth potential on their stock value. Now, if you're looking for something, where you want to capitalize and cash in on dividend opportunities, this could be a good stock because, like I said, at some point when they get back to issuing a dividend, it's, a pretty long-standing company that there is opportunity for you to be able to collect a dividend check every quarter as it relates to still holding your stock. So, and when it comes down to the stock, I give it a B minus. Now, when I look at it as a whole, I would say I gave their product a B, their finances a B plus, the stock a B minus, which rounds their total score off to a B. So if you're thinking about Ford Motor Company, maybe one that you can consider, maybe one you can look into, but first, do your own homework. Make sure you look into it and you understand your strategy and you understand how this stock can fit into your strategy. If this stock doesn't fit into your strategy, it doesn't matter what anybody else says, you probably shouldn't move on this stock. So, as I tell all of you, thank you for being a part of the community if you're already a part of the community. But if you're not a part of the Smart Investor in community, you can definitely go over to patreon.com/business talk library and join the Smart Investor community, because we do stock reviews just like this, but we do multiple ones every week for our Smart Investor and VIP investor community. Now, the benefits of the VIP investor is you also get to dialogue and send requests in to the team to where we can then do the research in-house and we can aim to get your requests on the show. So where we'll do the research, we'll do a video just like this, walking through the ideas, the different company names that you present and that you share with us so that we can help you. And then also, one of the stock reviews that we do a week, because we're doing multiple, but one a week goes on our Facebook page. So definitely follow us on Facebook and Instagram at stock_talks1. Stocks_talks1 to see more of the great things that we're doing. Thanks for watching.